Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Finance Committee, Thursday, March 16th, 2023, to order. This evening, we'll be following the published and posted agenda. We'll be doing a hybrid meeting where we'll have participation both from the audience and on Zoom. Our first item on the agenda is approval of minutes from March 9th, 2023. Has everyone had an opportunity to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. John?
Yes, I have.
Okay. Do I have a
I'd like to
motion?
make a motion to accept the minutes.
I second the motion.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
You abstain? Okay, 4 in favor, 1 abstention, 2 absent. All right. Moving right along our agenda, we have a review of the fiscal year 24 budget for the Neshoba Valley Technical School District, and with us this evening, we have Dr. Denise Pigeon, the superintendent. We have, I believe, Michelle. Yeah, Buffet. Okay, thank you. And members of the school committee from Chelmsford.
Excuse me, Jim, are you letting people in on Zoom, or are they coming? Virginia's trying to get in.
Virginia is in.
She in? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, she just texted me. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Shall I come up to the podium?
Certainly.
Okay. And then what's the best way to advance the slides? Just let you know?
Just let me know and I'll advance them.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you for the invitation to present before you this evening. We always enjoy coming to Chelmsford Finance. We also had a wonderful meeting with the liaisons from the Finance Committee just last week, I believe, and that was excellent. So if you want to go to the first slide. I just wanted to take a minute to share with you the portrait of a graduate that we have been focused on at Neshoba Tech over the last year as we sort of refocus and work towards moving forward. Again, we're working for all students to be respectful, responsible, resilient, resourceful, and ready for the workforce or whatever path they choose when they leave high school. Before I talk about the budget, there are always key things I like to speak about because I really feel like it sets the stage for why we have a budget and what we are funding. And the biggest piece of what we do is the outcomes when students leave Neshoba Tech. Positive placement is one of the criteria that we are graded on through Perkins and through the Department of Education. And historically, Neshoba Tech has always had a very high positive placement, and that means when a student graduates, they either go right into the workforce, 2-year college, 4-year college. There is a slight difference in how the data is collected. So when you see the data in 2021, it looks a tad skewed. It looks a little lower than typical, still over 90%, but it is lower. And this is the first year they collected the data at 6 months instead of 1 year. So that's something that we'll be watching to see if there's any changes moving forward. And just to take a moment, Neshoba, we serve 8 towns, and those 8 towns actually cross over numerous workforce regions and numerous mass hire regions. We're very active participants with all of those regions. They do put out blueprints for what the priority industries and the critical industries are in those areas. And I'm just pleased to share that our 20 technical programs are in alignment with the workforce needs of our 8 sending towns. This is taking a closer look at our offerings broken down by the DESE clusters that we have. And 41% of the students enrolled at Neshoba Tech are in our construction and transportation cluster, again, which is greatly aligned with the needs that are out there in industry. 31% in health and services cluster, and 28% of our students participating in the arts and technology cluster. I really wanted to take a minute to share this slide because this is something new. Neshoba Tech was an early adopter in getting on board with the statewide initiative called CTI, or Career and Technical Initiative. And this is a state grant program that fully funds a 200-hour job retraining program at the schools that are offering these programs. We started with just a cohort in automotive, then we added plumbing. We're now up to these 4 different programs that are being offered to adults in the area at night. It is at no cost to the participant, and it is at no cost to the towns. This is fully funded, again, through a state grant. If there are interested members of the community that are interested in a 200-hour job retraining program, they can contact us and we can help them get in touch with Mass Hire. The enrollment process is through Mass Hire, but it's just another resource that we are pleased to provide, again, fully aligned with the workforce industries that are in need right now. And again, I always like to share, we have many cooperative placement partners, many of which are located right here in the town of Chelmsford. If you know of other businesses that are interested in hiring our students as they continue on their workforce learning journey, please contact us. Don't hesitate to enrollment because, again, budgets are based on enrollment. And from just looking at our 10-year trends, we're continuing with the same trends that we've seen over the last several years. We have an increase in district interest. And as district interest has continued to increase, we are not able to accept school choice students. So that we're now a couple of years in a row in that trend. That trend is continuing. So we have an increase overall of 27 district students, and our school choice population is decreasing as more district students are interested in participating in our programming. This is the breakdown by town, and these are important because this is actually what drives the assessment formulas. And you can see that in some of our towns, we've had increases, in some of our towns, yeah. And overall, we're up 27 district students. The portion of enrollment, again, is used when we calculate the town assessments, which you'll see in a few slides. Just looking specifically at Chelmsford, enrollment has been increasing, but it's still nowhere near your high, which was back in 1976 with 313 students. I just always like to share that from a historical perspective. This is really projected what's happening with our school choice trends at Neshoba Tech. And again, district interest has been up multiple years in a row. We used to take in about 18 to 20 school choice students per grade level, and we're moving into another year where there will be no school choice seats available. I wanted to share this slide. In the last couple of months, there have definitely been a lot of news articles about admissions and vocational schools and whether or not we're serving a similar population to our sending high schools. So I wanted to share this slide to let you know that I know that you probably saw some of those articles recently, but Neshoba Tech is not a school that has concerns in that area. We do, in fact, represent our sending towns quite well. And in fact, in some of our areas, our percentages of students in special populations is much higher than our sending towns. And we do a great job serving all populations. Looking if we want to go back one, I just want to point out with Chelmsford, the high school population of first language not English, that is something that we did look at because that does look higher than what we've seen at Neshoba Tech. So we're going to do much more work with outreach, making sure that every students from all populations have access to apply, know how to apply, have assistance in applying, and we'll keep an eye on that as well. I usually don't speak to the future budget enrollment, but I felt that in this case it was really important to bring this to the attention of the Finance Committee. We're moving again next year into another year where district interest is still very high. We have a very high number of applications this year for the number of seats that we have available. We'll be graduating out 19 school choice students, and we'll be taking in another large class of all district students. So in FY25, we could see a pretty significant swing in district enrollment at Neshoba Tech. Could be as many as, we could see a projected increase of 71 district students that would then be broken down by the 8 towns. So not all Chelmsford students, but broken down between the 8 towns. Comparing our costs to other regional vocational schools in the area, we're not the lowest. We're slightly below the middle. We have been working on actually making sure that we're not the lowest because we don't think that's the right thing. We also don't want to be the highest. We're trying to be right around in the middle. And again, we're slightly below the middle here. I just wanted to share that ranking with you. In terms of the FY24 budget, we did increase 2 staff members in this budget. We have had, again, increasing enrollment over a couple of years now. We're adding 1 position for academic moderate disabilities, and we are adding a carpentry instructor, which actually is wonderful because our carpentry program only had 2 teachers before, and it will be going to 3, which will match our plumbing and our electrical programs as well. And those 3 programs together are really the largest in our building. In terms of other drivers, the cost of everything has increased, including technical program supplies and materials. This year is the last year of our transportation contract, so we did have to go out to bid. We did receive 1 bid. I think it's a story that we've heard before. And it was an increases for Middlesex retirement and other building grounds, capital needs, etc. Looking specifically at capital, we've been working to get a real handle on what the needs are in our facility, which is over 50 years old, looking forward 5 years, 10 years so that we can plan ahead. We are facing some more expensive projects coming up, and we wanted to make sure that, again, it's not affecting this year's budget, but it will affect future year budgets. We're looking at, in this particular year, elevator upgrade, first phase of fire suppression upgrades. And we do have a pretty big HVAC need moving forward that we're going to start working on. Where our finance group, our budget and finance subcommittee is having a lot of discussions about how to plan and prep for this. Some of the discussions are whether or not we would start increasing funds to stabilization and then use those to offset costs, or increasing the capital assessment portion of the assessment. So we're talking about how to go about this so that we can have a plan to make sure that all of the towns know how we plan to move forward with this. Or we may need to research going out for a bond to tackle some of the larger capital needs in the coming years. But here's the great news, sort of unprecedented news. I know I've been before you before, and I've told you that we are very proactive in going after competitive grants. Our team has really just outdone themselves. We are so fortunate that in the past year, we received a very large grant, $2.5 million, to expand vet tech and electrical technology. And then not too long after that, we submitted another workforce skills grant, and it was a long shot, and we received it again. So $3.75 million to expand and add some square footage to move our engineering programming and robotics program. All of this is through the Workforce Skills Capital Grant Program, and we are so thankful and so grateful. The good news here is that some of the upgrades that are happening, we're going to be able to renovate the HVAC in those areas. So some of those things that are on our capital plan will be able to be addressed through this. And again, it's really helping us keep pace with making sure that our 20 technical programs are state-of-the-art and up-to-date and have all been done with funding outside of the budget process. Always like to share the current balance of stabilization, which is there for your review. There is no funding going towards stabilization in the FY25 budget. OPEB, we are making proposing a $200,000 contribution to OPEB, and the current funding is in there as well. Again, I always like to thank Paul Cohen and Andrew McLean, the town manager from Pepperell, for serving on that trust committee with us. And here's the budget by state function code. Again, we had already sort of discussed the major drivers. The biggest difference is in instruction. Again, that's the cost of step and lane increases for staff. That's also the addition of the 2 teachers that we had previously spoken about. The transportation contract, you can see the changes there. And those are the primary drivers in the change in the proposed budget. This is just a visual so that you can see the majority of our funding, as usual, is going to the cost of instruction and pupil services. In terms of the revenue plan, we were very pleased that we did receive an increase in direct Chapter 70 aid. So that was great news with the governor's budget, primarily due to the increase in enrollment and also the continued implementation of the Student Opportunities Act. Regional transportation was pretty much on target with where we thought it would be. Excess and deficiency, one of the things that we have decided to do this year, and that was voted by the committee, we are not putting forward the full amount of excess and deficiency this year. There's about $250,000 of E&D that is not reflected in this budget. And again, some of that is in preparation for FY25. We are concerned that this current year budget, we are spending at a rate faster than we had in previous years. Again, changes in the cost of everything. And also concerned about addressing some of those capital needs that we've been talking about. I just wanted to point that out. In terms of the revenue plan, this is just another picture format where you can see about 66.5% of our budget is funded through town assessments, and a little bit more than 25% from direct Chapter 70 aid. And then it breaks down to the assessments by town. This is just showing all of the towns. If you go to the next slide, this is really looking at the total assessment for all towns and the difference from last year to this year. So you can see the increase of 27 students overall. Our minimum contributions up significantly. That's through the state formula. Minor change in transportation. Actually a decrease in the additional assessment to towns. And then a decrease in the debt service for a total assessment comparison over all towns to an increase of 3.74%. And the next slide will show you specific to Chelmsford. So up 5 students in Chelmsford. TAL's minimum contribution is up over 225,000, and you can see how the rest of the formula works its way through. And I can't see it quite that far, but I think it's a 3.4% increase. Sorry, I can't see that far. And lastly, we always want to let you know we're open for service. Please come by. We'd love to have you participate in some of the programming that we have available to the community. In addition to the presentation, I've also shared with you a few documents. You have the current year budget actuals to date. I gave you a copy of that. In addition, you have all of the more specific handouts for the budget. I know the Finance Committee likes to look at actuals, so we gave you a copy of the actuals to budget as well. I believe we also shared with you a copy of the audit link, and I did link it so that if you want to watch the video of the auditor's presentation, you can see that as well. And I think that covers it.
Any questions?
One question. Denise, you anticipate you could be up to 71 more students. Is there any, is the infrastructure and the staff able to support that?
Yes, we can support that. It's an increase of about 50 students overall because we're graduating a class that's less than 200. We'll be taking in a class that's likely slightly more than 200. The big swing in district enrollment is the combination of graduating a smaller class, bringing in a larger class, but it's also the fact that we're graduating out 19 school choice students and those 19 seats are being filled with district seats. So it's sort of there's two things occurring that are going to cause that swing. In terms of predicting what will happen specific to Chelmsford's enrollment next year, we run all sorts of trends. We try, if the same number of students walked through the door last year, that Chelmsford will see an enrollment swing. It's certainly not going to be all of those students, but there will be a difference. And what I try to do is I try to keep the town managers updated as we go through that first round of application process, as students start to say, yes, I plan to attend Neshoba Tech. And then when they walk through the door in the fall, I'll start emailing Paul to keep him in the loop as to the change in enrollment, just so that everyone can be prepared. But I think it's really wonderful. The interest is up. Students understand the value of a workforce training opportunity. And I'm happy that we're able to continue to serve the students of Chelmsford.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Thank you very much for your presentation, and thank you for continuing to be very thorough with the information you provide
Thank
to
you.
us.
Thanks.
Happy birthday. That's you.
You're killing me, Dave. You're killing me.
That
Thanks.
was the plan.
All right, moving right along on our agenda this evening, we have a review of the fiscal year 24 budget for the DPW, Stormwater Sewer, Solid Waste, and Recycling Facilities. And with us is Director Christine Clancy. Before she starts presenting, I just want to state that I have filed my disclosure pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 268A, Section 19B1, regarding my relation to the director. And it's been accepted by an appointing authority. And so we'll be proceeding with the presentation.
Thank you. I do have handouts of the presentation, so I'll just pass them around.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me tonight, and thank you, Sam and Cindy, for meeting with me now a couple weeks ago to go over the budget in detail. So I do have tonight a presentation. We'll just step through the budget. So the DPW budget, first slide, please. The DPW is comprised really of 8 divisions: engineering, highway, facilities, park, public buildings, parks, sewer, stormwater. And we will go over through these slides the FY24 budget. And if you have any questions along the way, I can answer for that slide or at the end. So the way that the DPW budget is presented, it is presented in 4 separate subtotals. We'll go into each of the subtotals. The fiscal 24 DPW budget is presented to maintain a level of service. There really are three cost drivers for the increases. First is the gas diesel price. In totality, amongst all the divisions, that amounts to $156,000. At the time that we prepared this budget, it was in the fall. That's when everyone was paying closer to $5 a gallon. The state did give recommendations to carry costs increases of anywhere from 25 to 50%. So we have budgeted that. I know right now, you're seeing reduced costs at the gas stations, but that is, we don't know. It's an unknown, so we are trying to be conservative in our assumptions. The next largest cost driver is and I will get into detail in the presentation, is the solid waste recycling contract. That is in contract. The overall for that division, it's an increase of just under $500,000. And that's substantial just for the DPW budget, but also I think for the entire town's budget as a whole, and I will get into detail on that. And then I think you will see a theme across a lot of budgets in town is just the increase in industry or the cost of materials. For supplies, a lot of our materials are construction-related materials or various equipment, and we have seen significant increases. So we've had to, in some of the expense columns, we've had to carry some anticipated overruns or anticipated costs for those items. And so in totality, this is an $18.5 million budget, but it is broken down amongst the DPW, the facilities, and then the sewer enterprise and stormwater enterprise are separate budgets that I'll go over. So first, the administration and engineering division. Overall, this had a minimal increase of 2.27%. There was some personnel changes. Over the past year, we have had a lot of staff changes in DPW, particularly in the engineering department. One of the adjustments that I did make was reallocate the town engineer salary. Half of that salary was previously in the sewer division. I just felt best to move it so its entirety is in the engineering division. So that change has been made. Other than that, there hasn't been too many changes. Next slide, please. So this is the highway division. Overall, is a 6.37% increase. The largest cost drivers for this division is the gasoline and diesel cost increases, amounting to just under $100,000 that we anticipate potentially in this division. We also added a new category called fence repair and replacement. This was originally carried under the road materials category, so you'll see a slight reduction in that category. We often find that we're repairing guardrails or sometimes other fences on town property that fall, in the past, they fell under the road materials category. So we just want to try to itemize that and track that for future cost estimating. Snow and ice. I hope that we're done for this season, but we don't know. This is typically level funded, level serviced. Proposed budget $1.15 million. I know we haven't had too much snow this season, but we've had a lot of salting events. Also, I just want to highlight that this year we did pilot a brining program, and I think it went very well. We will put together some estimated cost savings. The cost of salt has gone up significantly. A couple years ago, it was about $40 a ton. Now it's around $70 a ton. So that is a huge expense under our snow and ice budget. Brining allows us to pre-treat the roads, and it really allows for a quicker cleanup. There are some restrictions as to when we can apply it. I just wanted to show this photo. I really like this photo on the right. This was a pilot that we did on Alpha Road, and you can see on the right side of the road we did not pre-treat. On the left side of the road we did pre-treat, so that essentially the brining creates prevents that first snowfall to bond to the pavement, and as you can see it's been very effective. Then the picture on the left is just our operations on Tuesday, and like I said, I hope that we're out of this for the season, but too soon to tell. Next slide, please. Public trees, this is a category that it has its own budget section. This is level funded. We do have an on-call contractor that we just recently awarded, Mayor Services. They're able to respond to emergency and non-emergency calls for tree removal and stump removal. This item, or this budget item, is carried at $75,000 in level, like I said, level funded. We also use this item, this cost category, for consulting with arborists and other specialists as needed, to review trees and evaluate trees as needed. Next slide, please. So this is the big item that has really caused an increase in our budget, the solid waste and recycling collection. So we have a new contract. Our current contract is expiring this June, and we are now just signing with a new contractor, E.L. Harvey, a 5-year contract. We know when we went out to bid that we would see an increase in costs. Industry-wide, we're 25 to 30%. We were potentially projecting. Fortunately, it came in, it's still high, 21%. It amounts to a $418,000 increase for this year. The good news is that it's a 5-year contract, so it will lock us into 3% increases over the next 5 years. So we shouldn't see a 21% increase, at least until after the next 5 years. I want to highlight this is an exciting contract too, because we will be moving from biweekly recycling to weekly recycling. And also we will be providing or having brush and leaf curbside removal 5 times a year, which I think is a benefit that we, right now we have limited services in that. Also under this division there is an increase right now we have a contract with Covanta to dispose of our trash. That tipping fee is increasing per contract at 5%, $93.60 a ton to $97.34. Before I move on to the next slide, I just want to mention that we do have an app, and where everyone should download, every resident. It allows you to have any updates for your collection. Also, if there's any other notices or any new events that we'll push through the app. We still, have it through some other sources, and we still are publishing materials, and we still have the annual mailer. But this can be downloaded through Google Play or the Apple Store. So I recommend everyone sign up for that. And it is a free app. And then just the increase in advertisements. So cost of materials, the cost of paper, printing has gone up. So there's I think a $15,000 increase there as well, or a $7,000 increase. Next slide, please. Municipal facilities. Overall, this budget has increased just under 6%. There were some personnel adjustments and no additional staff for that division. That on this budget, we did add an assistant facilities project manager. That manager is currently paid under ARPA, so it's not reflected in this number. Other cost drivers for this division were some building maintenance increases and building safety maintenance. Under that item, that was proposed increases about $60,000, but also there's a reduction by $50,000 in the equipment repair cost category. We just really shifted some of those projections. We also added $8,000 for vehicle maintenance repair costs. The fleet is aging. And another cost driver, as mentioned earlier, is gasoline. So estimating an additional $20,000 for fuel costs related really for our fleet under facilities. Public buildings. This budget section is really for the maintenance of the town offices, the CCA, and the Old North Town Hall. Minor increase of 3.24%. Increase of $5,000. Building maintenance. Just for the cost of repairs and those associated materials. Next slide, please. Parks. It does work closely with facilities, but it does have its own budget section. Minimal adjustments, 2.95%, which is really just the COLA adjustment under the personnel services, and then also gasoline cost increase. Next slide, please. Street lighting, adjustments. So in this section, it is showing as an 8.24% increase, but it's only $7,000. Looking at the repairs needed in the past year, we felt it necessary to increase this budget item. Also, National Grid has a project across town that we've had to do some additional fuse replacements. So we are projecting an estimated some additional work this upcoming year. So the last two divisions that are the enterprises, the sewer division and the stormwater division. So overall for the sewer division is 8.3% increase. Under personnel services, we reallocated the town engineer's salary, half a salary over to engineering. So that shows a reduction, a minor reduction, but a reduction under personnel services. Under the expense columns, we do have a major maintenance category. We're proposing an additional $72,000, and this is really for an increase in the cost of materials. And also, we need to purchase new grinder pumps at both Katrina and Southwell, and that's for those two locations is about $50,000 for those two grinder pumps at those locations. These are larger than the residential ones that people have in their homes. There's also a projection for an additional $100,000 for the user fee to Lowell's wastewater treatment plant. That's we looked at based on our current usage, and we're really at capacity, but our current usage, and looking at our recent bill. Their bill is calculated based on usage and what cost is passed down from Lowell's operating expenses. We also are proposing an additional $15,000 related to gasoline fuel. In the next couple of slides, I'll go over two other increases. One is the, before we go to the next slide, contract services item. That is increased by $222,000. And this is for a force main assessment, and I'll get into that. And then the debt service is also increasing by $15,000 a year. And we'll go over our capital improvement plan. So next slide, please. So this, about 3 years, actually almost exactly 3 years ago, the town experienced a forced main break at Southwell, resulting in a sanitary sewer overflow to the Merrimack River. And that had to be reported to DEP. As one of the requirements from DEP, we have to do is a force main assessment of all of our ductile iron force mains. We have 21 ductile iron force mains across town, and this has been put together as a 10-year plan on assessing the force mains. The repair at Southwell was costly, almost $700,000. So hopefully, by spending money up front and doing this assessment, we'll be able to catch anything if we suspect any potential failure or concerns of the mains. So for the first year, that is both Richardson Road and Southwell. It is estimated at $45 a linear foot because it is a camera inspection that goes into the force main while the force main remains active. So no bypass is necessary. And it also measures the thickness from the inside of the pipe, and that's what we want, because if we see any deterioration at joints or thickness of pipe, that's something to potentially be concerned about. So this is, at least in the next 10 years, we're looking at an annual cost that we're looking to carry in our operating expenses under the contract services. We did say, this is the first of the 10 years, and so if we will continue to review this with DEP to see if anything needs to be adjusted, but as of right now, this is our 10-year plan. Next slide, please. And we also updated our capital improvement plan for pump stations. We have 41 pump stations across town. There's really 14 remain that need some major and even the minor upgrades are somewhat major, but a lot of the pump stations, the pump station that's pictured here is Mylan Station. There's it looks like a shed. When you drive around town, you see these sheds. That is essentially what we want to bring the equipment inside so it's protected. We also have updated this 10-year capital improvement plan to reflect industry cost the additional estimated costs. Mylan Station is the next station. Originally, that was estimated at $450,000. Now it's closer to over $800,000. When we were going out to bid, we realized we were short for this particular project, Mylan Pump Station, $542,000. That is proposed under this budget to be borrowed over 10 years, so all you're seeing is the $15,000, which really is interest. We wouldn't be looking for the payback really until fiscal year 25. that is everything. Yes, next, Stormwater Division. Thank you. So the last division and our newest division is the Stormwater Division. Overall, an increase of 3.55%. There were some adjustments under the cost categories for personnel service adjustments, some just grade increases, in our new positions. We did increase the equipment repair item to account for an additional vehicle repair maintenance. Although it's the newest division, that fleet is starting to need more repairs. We also are showing an increase in $21,000 for gasoline for fuel. We did reduce the major projects line item by $75,000. And that is because we are right now have a ARPA project where we're assessing 14 culverts across town. And so we've shifted some of that money towards ARPA. And then there's one other item I want to highlight is the outlay. So for outlay, we do show $38,000, I believe, and that's for a new vehicle for stormwater staff because they have to go out a lot to look at site inspections and also for make sure we're in compliance for MS4 permitting. That takes us through all the divisions. I don't know if there's any questions.
I have a question. So for the staff position that's covered by ARPA, is it covered 100%? And how long is that expected to last?
So right now it's covered 100%, and for now it's for this year.
So it will need to be picked up in your budget for?
Potentially.
Next year.
The other thought is that if there's any shift in projects, I guess, is it still needed? It's something we will evaluate. But right now it's to move forward. We have, I know we still have $2.5 million left of ARPA. We don't know how it's going to be spent yet. But right now we're trying to move forward several $1 million. And so it depends on when we get through this progress, how much is needed.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right.
All right.
Thank
Seeing
you.
none.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That's the best we've seen in years.
Sir.
The best presentation, my God.
Moving right along our agenda this evening, we have the review of the fiscal year 24 budget for the Council on Aging and Senior Center. And with us this evening, we have the Human Services Director, Deborah Siriani.
Hi, everybody. Hi. Thanks for
Hello.
having me. I want to say a special thank you to David Gosnick, who's been our liaison for years now and has been very supportive and wonderful, so thanks so much. So we just have a few increases this year. One is we're obviously needing to weather some of the costs of food prices for our Meals on Wheels and congregate meal site. Right now, we are at about $14,000 a month in food costs. So, and just for a perspective for our contract with Age Span and Elder Services, we get $1.16 reimbursement per meal that we serve. So we're making the money in all kinds of ways that we can. And one of those ways is, one of the buckets that we use to pay for things is the general fund. So the cost, we're just asking for $4,000 more in our line item this year for our expenses. The next thing that we're asking for is we used to have on our general fund personnel line. We used to have a building maintenance position part-time. Somebody left, and then we started using some of that money for to support our companion program. And so we have a new position where it's not a part-time position, but a full-time position, a person who, and we've been able to expand our companion program to help more people who, it's really, we haven't had to advertise at all, and it's really filled up. So that position is now called, and let's see, Elder Support Services Coordinator. So they're partly paid by the general fund, and partly paid by the contracts that we have and the fees that we charge for our companion program. And we're just asking for 50% paid by the companion program, 50% by the general fund. Right now, it's 40% by the general fund, and we're asking for that. We have given our companions an increase this year to make sure that we're up to date with our minimum wage. So that's been a significant cost for us. And we've also increased rates for the families, unfortunately, to keep up with that as well. So we're just asking for a little bit of support from general fund for that. The other things that we need an increase with is our electricity line item. And the electricity, that's just based on actual costs from this past year. And so I had to increase the line item. But other than that, a few of our goals I put in our presentation. We're not asking for you to give us money. We're just letting you know that we have costs that we're increasing. We have revolving funds that pay more than 50% of our expenses, personnel and expenses. So I manage a lot of little buckets. I'm not sure if you got that added slide. David wasn't sure that you got it.
Slide on the revolving.
Jim, I sent it to you, and it was just the other day when you asked for more
Don't I
slides.
have handouts?
But
it's
it showed a little bit more about, okay, you can see this. So we have 6.5 FTEs of personnel covered by
first time we
the
did this.
general fund, and the rest of our staffing. We have 23 staff members. A lot of them are subs, a lot of them are part-timers, up to 19 hour positions, and those are all paid by revolving funds. So this is more of an awareness than asking you for money, but we do have, we're looking to raise the rates of our fund, our general, the grant-funded employees by 5% this year to keep people as much as we can, because the economy is it's challenging. A lot of businesses are now raising their rates and for paying people, and we're just not getting the same buying power for keeping our staff. So we want to keep our staff and treat them as well as we can. So we'll be managing that, and that's going to cost us about $13,000 more this year, just to try to, make sure that our staff are supported. And let's see. And then the other thing we did with the support of the Friends is we increased our outreach by adding 4 more pages in our newsletter, and so the Friends have been supporting that. And that's at a cost of $6,500 about. So we've added 4 more pages to our newsletter to add more information and resources for people to get. So that's about all that we're asking for this year. Do we have any questions? It's fairly simple.
Any questions?
Just a comment, I want to thank Denise and John Souza for helping us to get a look at the revolving funds. That's something we haven't looked at very much in the past. I haven't. Okay, and appreciate the work that was done.
Thank you. It sometimes looks a little it's deceiving, because it looks like we may have a lot of money, but we have a tremendous amount of expenses.
That's why we put a couple of years of history in there, so
Yeah.
you could take a look at it.
It's helpful to be able to see. And one of those years was really coming off of COVID, so some of our programs were very challenged, and we were losing thousands of dollars a month trying to maintain them and keep them steady. But that's because we had a pretty good, stable amount of money in our revolving accounts at the time. And also, we've been getting earmark grants to be able to support things, and other grants from Mass Council on Aging and Executive Office of Elder Affairs have helped us in the past few years. So that's really pretty stable. We've been doing great, so we're back. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you.
Have a
much.
great night.
Thank you.
Right. Next on our agenda this evening is a review of the fiscal year 24 budget for the Health
Surprises.
Department. And with us
No
this evening
surprises
is Sue Rosa,
No surprises there.
our BSN RN and Public Health Director.
Good. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
You being the master auditor ought to be.
Thank you for having me tonight. I also brought with me to introduce to you my Assistant Public Health Director, Donna Greenwood.
Good evening.
So Donna has been my Assistant Director since July 1st, and it has been a godsend as far as workload and being able to get everything done. I can proudly stand here and tell all of you that our health department, because of our current staff, is 100% up to date on all of our inspections around food service places where we were like a couple years behind.
Yep.
But we are on target. And as long as we can continue to maintain the same staff level, we will be able to maintain that. We'll be able to inspect pretty much every restaurant twice a year, and some of those high-risk ones 3 times a year. So the ultimate goal is to keep everybody safe in Chelmsford. Have to put these on and hope I can see. So I did include everything in the narrative as far as what our goals and objectives are. We are completely transitioned to our online permitting. That is going really well. This year, we're just now finishing up transitioning to using tablets in the field to do our inspections for our food establishments. Our food establishment inspection form is on the tablet. It makes it much easier to have the person in charge at the restaurant look at it right then and there, sign. It's also easier for us if we happen to be fining them because of food violations. They can actually sign there as well rather than waiting. So we're really happy about that. But of course, with that comes a cost, which we have to pay to have the Wi-Fi capability and all that. The big expense was last year, though, when we actually purchased the tablets. So moving forward, it's just the expense of maintaining the Wi-Fi. I do say, and as I said earlier with the current staff, right now my current staff does include 2 ARPA-funded positions, which one of them being a health inspector and the other one being a mental health person that I am currently job sharing with. She works under the health department, but I job share that position with the police department in order to follow up on a lot of the mental health things that are happening here in town around homelessness, substance use, domestic violence, all of that. And that partnership is working out really well. We are increasing our advertising through Facebook and Instagram. That was one of the things that was brought to our attention in the last couple of years, that people want more visibility, so we're doing our best to try. I don't know if any of you had a chance to attend our Fall Festival. That was the first one we did this past October. We probably had, it was a lousy rainy day, and we probably had close to 2,000 people attend. It was phenomenal.
Impressive.
And we do plan on doing that again this fall. In addition to the Soberfest, which that was in September, that was also well-attended. We are going to be moving forward with a lot of extra programs around substance use prevention now that we have the opioid funds coming in and they have been allocated to the health department. We have already started our initiatives around, we have nalox boxes across the community. They're in every fire station lobby. They're in the police department lobby, CCA lobby, and libraries. And people can just walk up, take Narcan anytime they want. That's all funded through that opioid program. We're also doing Narcan training, and we have probably already trained, what, how many people, Donna, would you say? 60, 50, 60 people already, and we're doing a couple trainings per month, and every training has had 10, 12 people, which is fantastic. And with that training, everybody walks away with a little Narcan kit that has Narcan in it. It has a face shield, it has a little card on how to do CPR and to call 911. So those are some of the initiatives that we're doing, and we plan to expand that as well. The other big thing that we've done is we all know that mental health is a huge crisis. 4 of us in the department are now trained as youth mental health first aid instructors. And we plan on bringing that out to the community, collaborating that with the schools and the teachers. So that's going to be a huge initiative. And then we've also started, it was supposed to start this Tuesday, but it's next Tuesday because of the weather, a Buried in Treasure program, and that is in addition to the one that April Hunt runs at the senior center for people who are at risk of hoarding and collecting things. And it's completely voluntary. We advertised it. It was full with a waiting list in 3 days. So 15 people is the max. It's a 15-week, 1.5-hour program. So just the response alone tells you the need in our community. Our housing cases and our hoarding cases have increased astronomically in the last 6 months. We're just seeing more and more of it, and all of that is tied to mental health. As far as the restaurant inspections, we also are going to offer another program to all of our restaurant owners, that they will come in and we explain to them what we are looking for when we come in and do an inspection. And if they want to avoid fees, then they follow the inspection report. It's the state inspection report. Everything on the first page, if it's a violation, is a $100 violation. Anything on the second page is a $50 violation. And in fiscal year '22, unfortunate, but now we're winding down, we collected $25,520 in violation fees. That we're not proud of,
But
because.
you're proud that it was found.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And knowing that we have kind of a zero tolerance, and now they know what we're looking for, they really don't have an excuse when we walk through that door. And when we walk through the door, it's always unannounced. Always. So I think that pretty much goes over my summary, other than the other basic things. The only other thing I will put a plug in, I did increase my education budget from 4,200 to 6,000, and that's with basically not counting my department assistant. There's 7 of us in the office that all need, education, continuing education credits around public health issues. So even that 6,000 isn't going to be enough. The Mass Health Officers Association that 5 of us have to go to is $1,000 a piece. So, but we are still looking into other coalitions that we're part of and other grant funding to try to help with, to offset that. And then next, I had the staff, the health department staff budget. I don't know if anybody has any questions about that. Amanda Glasser left during this past fiscal year. Her position was filled by Taryn as that public health and wellness coordinator. So that position was always a 30-hour-a-week position through my budget. She works full-time. Taryn is currently being paid 30 hours out of health department budget and 7.5 hours a week out of the ARPA funds. And then a lot of her job does focus on substance use prevention and education, so that will be supplemented with the opioid funds when the ARPA funds run out. And then Mark hits his 20 years halfway through this year, so his longevity goes up. He and I are the only 2 in the department that have been here long enough for longevity.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question. So you mentioned that you go out to restaurants twice a year unannounced, and then for high-risk restaurants, you go out 3 times a year. Could you define what a high-risk restaurant is, and do you pass along any of those additional costs to these restaurants?
Might be recorded, no.
Without naming them, if you
No,
could just
no.
define.
So essentially, the way that we have defined them, so the FDA has an entire program that health departments can get involved in around food inspections, risk numbers. Like if you go into Boston, you'll see numbers sometimes on the outsides of their windows, and they are on a scale. And that scale is basically identifying them as to how well they follow the food code and where their risk level is. The amount of money that it would cost us here in Chelmsford to be a part of that program is astronomical. It's thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars, because you need to do a community assessment. It's very detailed. So what we're doing, we know what their guidelines are. So we're looking at our own establishments, and we're saying, okay, it really comes down to the types of foods you serve. You know, so anything with uncooked fish and all that is a much higher risk than some of the other food products. And it's all about, the storage, the time temperature control, how you manage all of that. And so what we are doing is we're looking at the inspection reports, we're looking at where they fall, we're looking at where their violations were, and if they have a lot of violations on the critical list, which is like 32 on page 1. And all of that has to do with foodborne illness potential. And if they fail miserably, then I can tell you with 100% confidence, all of our inspectors know if you walk in there and they fail that inspection miserably, they are shut down on the spot. And then we send an email out to town manager, police, fire, everybody, letting them know they are shut until they're reopened by the health department. And they're given the list of what they need to do. And it's amazing how quickly they'll turn things around most of the time. And then we always go back, we re-inspect. And then because they failed, we don't wait another 6 months. We go in a shorter period of time to make sure that they're staying on their toes. And that's how we identify, like schools are mandatorily inspected twice a year anyway. By the state code, everybody's supposed to be inspected twice a year. We just never had the staff to keep up with it, and then COVID sent us back even further. So that's how and we kind of mark them on our sheet as a 1, 2, or a 3. 1 meaning if you don't sell any time temperature controlled foods, then you're very low risk. So if we get really far behind, that would be the one that we might push off a little bit.
Okay.
Any other
Well,
questions?
the inspections have increased exponentially
Oh,
from
yes.
where they were, and it's a credit to your department.
Thank you. Thank you. We're working hard. We're really trying to basically let people know in the community that we're a whole lot more than COVID. And, a whole lot more than giving flu shots, because we really are, And it's amazing that people have no idea what we do and the realm of what we do. But I have to give accolades to my staff. I have a great staff. And also the partners I have in this community are amazing. I work so well with senior center, town manager's office, police, fire, and more we're partnering on so many different things so that we're not all working in our silos. Because ultimately, school department, we just had a meeting with the SEL coordinator today to bring programs into the school. She was left here on cloud 9. She was like, oh my God, I didn't know you did all this. So it's just more and more collaboration. Right. Any questions? No?
Nice job.
Any questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along our agenda this evening, we have a review of the fiscal year 24 budget for Veteran Services. With us this evening is Regina Jackson, our Veterans Agent. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Anita, for being our liaison. I'd like to present the Veterans budget, and first of all, I'd like to explain that the mission of our office, the mission of the Chelmsford Veteran Services, is to provide short-term temporary public assistance to needy veterans and/or some family members. We do this by working with the state to implement our Chapter 115. That's the program that is funded through our budget. And what it is a program that the state Department of Veteran Services will, they basically set all the rules, they set all the numbers, they set all the criteria. We follow them. We, any veteran in our community that is in need will come in, and if they're eligible, they will receive a monthly stipend, and it is really just a safety net. And the whole idea behind it is that if we can support our veterans and the community members in such a way that we can help them apply for any and all other benefits, federal benefits that they're eligible for. So they, as part of the program, they must apply for VA comp, if they're eligible, VA comp, VA pension, Social Security disability, unemployment, employment, etc. So the wonderful thing about this program is the amount of money that we distribute, we get 75% back if we follow all the rules, which we always do. So one note about the state, the Department of Veteran Services, as of March 1st, it's been elevated to a cabinet level position. So now it's the Executive Office of Veteran Services, and they have doubled in size. They are in the process of doubling in size, have a new secretary, so I don't know. There'll be new things coming down. I'm assuming they're all going to be good. He may change the budget, the criteria, etc. But as far as it affects us, it's pretty straightforward. So, but an important thing to know about our office is, as I said, as part of the 115 program eligibility, you have to make sure that you get any other benefits that the veteran or family members may be eligible for. So a lot of my time is spent on federal claims, federal VA claims. So just to give you an idea of the numbers here, we do a lot of federal claims. So every year the VA federal benefits, they give us a snapshot. So the VA money that is coming into the community are grouped into different categories. You have service-connected disability compensation, you have pensions, you have DIC, which is a benefit for surviving spouses. So in all these benefits, everything has to be applied for. Nothing is automatic in the VA. Everything is, the onus is always on the veteran and or the family member to apply for a benefit. So, and each claim is unique. So just the update, VA dollars impact snapshot for Chelmsford as of October 2022, the amount of benefits that came into Chelmsford to 497 recipients was $8,282,824 a year. So it's a big chunk of money, but that's obviously not reflected in our budget because it's federal money. And one thing I got to tell you about the federal benefits now, with the new PACT Act that you probably all heard about, it was signed in August of 2022. It's going to have a big impact on all veterans, on healthcare, and VA healthcare enrollment has been changed. It's been opened up to a lot more different veterans will be eligible for it, and then also compensation claims. This is the big burn pit legislation. So you're going to have a lot of veterans that will be eligible for compensation. But again, it all has to be applied for. So the state and the VA itself, they're doing a series of education, and they're trying to get everybody up to speed and how to get all these claims in and to get them adjudicated, to get the claims awarded. So that's a big piece of workload that is kind of come upon all the veterans agents in the state. And it's a good thing because they're going to get more benefits. And so if we go back to our budget for the town, for us, it's basically a level funded budget. We're just requesting the same amount from last year. We do currently run about $11,000 to $12,000 a month in benefits, and that's paid out to about 19 to 20 recipients. The numbers of eligible Chapter 115 folks throughout the state, the numbers for every city and town are going down. And it's because the criteria is really, really restricted. I mean, if you are getting a benefit from us, you really, really, really are in need of that benefit. So it's going to kind of, I don't really know what's going to happen next year with the new secretary and the whole new Executive Office of Veterans Services. There's a lot of talk about them changing the budget, opening it up, make sure we can get more people on. But yeah, I don't know. We'll just see what happens. So, and that's about it. So nothing else has really changed.
Thank you. Any questions?
Regina, how quickly do you get reimbursement funds?
Oh, okay. So we get them, they're much, much better. 14 months. Okay, according to my budget, which I need to update, the last time we got them was July, August, and September 2022, and we got those in September 2023. But we already got January, February, March 2022. We just got it in March 2023. So it's really 12 months behind, and it's it's always 75%. I think once or twice through the years there was a little bit variance, but then you just, you can straighten it out. You appeal it, you get it straightened out.
In the 9 years I've seen you present before a committee, I don't think it's ever been less than 75.
No, you don't want it. I mean, it's money. It's free.
No.
I mean, it's a great program. You help the people in your community, and the state will reimburse you 75%. So that $150,000 line item is really, that's obviously before the 75% that we get back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Phew, thank you.
All right. And moving along. We have the review of the fiscal year 24 budget for the fire department. With us, we have Chief Gary Ryan. Certainly, last but not least.
And they all more and more are working together.
Thank you.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah,
Let me run the slide.
Concept.
I know.
Would you like me to run the slide, or?
I think you and I know some things.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Okay.
Due to our advanced age.
How's everybody doing?
Good to see you.
Killed a few trees on this one.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Chairman, board members, it's good to see everybody. Hope everybody's doing well.
My grandson played the same team. Oh, Chelmsford High. So listen to me, bitch. At the refs.
Okay, you can, next, please. Okay. Okay, so currently for fiscal '23, as it stands right now, we have 60 uniform members. We have one vacant position that we're in the process of trying to fill. I just had a member of the department who left for another area department. The good news is I have a member who is actually graduating for the Mass Fire Academy tomorrow. So, we're trying to.
Good timing.
Yeah, we're trying to even it out.
Good to hear.
So, but for the fiscal year budget that I'm presenting, I will be presenting a level service budget. Next, please. So the fiscal 2024 budget that I present to you is $6,916,314. Personnel budget of $6,262,576. That is a slight decrease of 1.94%. Please keep in mind that the labor agreement expired last July. We do not have an updated labor agreement, so this budget does not reflect that. So this will change. This budget will go up. Also, in addition, we have 12 members, or 20% of the department, under 5 years of service. Why is that significant? Because when you hit your 5th year, that's when you hit your top salary step. So, as far as expenses, I'm proposing a budget of $653,738. That is up 25%. You heard from the DPW director and others early today. Like them, we're trying to navigate through the inflationary pressures that we're all facing. The Chelmsford Fire Department not only has 5 stations, but we have a maintenance garage on Richardson Road, and also behind our Engine 4, we have a maintenance garage that stores our antiques. So we're responsible for maintaining a lot of equipment and buildings. So for the diesel, I know Director Christine Clancy was talking about diesel. We went up 113%. For an example, in May of 2021, we were spending $1.93. Just this past December, we were spending over $4. Vehicle maintenance is up 40%. Turnout gear has gone up 68%. That, I believe, will go up even further because we're talking about PFAS. The government is tightening PFAS in firefighter gear. They're trying to design firefighter gear without the PFAS, but keep the safety. But the expenses are going to go up. So, in building maintenance, again, we operate out of 5 stations. We have a maintenance, the mechanic works out of Richardson Road, and we have that other garage behind Engine 4. So it's an overall budget increase of 0.10%, but this maintains existing staffing at 63.5. Next, please. Just to look at our organizational chart, we have 4 groups or units as we call them, each managed by a company officer. We have 13 firefighters assigned to each unit, 2 captains in the fire prevention office and 1 in training, and we have 2.5 support staff. By the way, if you have any questions, just feel free to jump in. It's better that way. Next, please. This is a look at our typical staffing configuration. So right next door, out of the fire headquarters, we have a captain with 2 firefighters assigned to that station right now. Up in Engine 2, we have 3 firefighters, and then we have 2 firefighters at Engine 3. This is West Chelmsford. 2 firefighters at Engine 4 at East, and 2 firefighters at Engine 5, South Chelmsford. Next, please. Just taking a look at our station locations. Again, this shows just the stations, not the maintenance bays. The building next door is 8 years old. Princeton Street, we just hit the 1st anniversary back in December. I'm sorry, for the Engine 2 project. Engine 3 is 52 years old. Engine 4 at River Neck Road, 46. And Engine 5 is our oldest station at 56. Next, please. Not unexpected, energy costs are soaring for all of us. It's very expensive to operate and maintain 5 stations, very expensive to heat them in the winter, cool them down in the summer, especially when the garage doors are always going up. The only things that kind of stick out, North Chelmsford, it is a bigger building. We have 2 floors that we operate out of now, so there's a slight increase there. Also, East Chelmsford, River Neck Road, a lot of those costs are driven from that maintenance bay behind the station. It's a very inefficient building. That is the building that houses our antique trucks. So, next, please. So for 2022, we issued over 1,300 permits, brought in just under $50,000. Next, please. We issued permits over 25 permit categories. The most popular, open burning permits, smoke CO inspections. That's if you sell your house. Fire department has to come out to do the inspections of your detectors and issue a certificate for your closing. We offer fire protection systems, that is for the fire alarm for commercial buildings, and also tank removal and installation permits. Next, please. Some of the changes that we're starting to see in the EMS world. At the end of Governor Baker's term in January, Governor Baker opened up 25 community behavioral health centers. I know Director Sue Rosa was here earlier talking about the importance of mental health. That is certainly something that we work with as well. VenFen is the community behavioral health center that serves the greater Lowell area, our area. So currently what they do is they will have their behavioral specialists assigned to Lowell General and triage and treat patients that are going into the hospital. What is happening right now with these mental health patients, they're getting treated, they're getting transported by ambulance directly to the hospital, and they're sitting, in, quite honestly, for a long time in the waiting room before they're effectively evaluated, and then they make a decision where they're going to be treated. And usually it's somewhere pretty far, like Pembroke or Dartmouth. The goal of this project is to treat them locally, right here at community behavioral health centers throughout the state. And the new law also allows, for the first time, ambulances to directly transport to these community behavioral health centers. Before, they can only bring you to the hospital. So now, they can bring you to the community behavioral health center. The problem, these places aren't equipped right now to accept patients. So this is a work in progress. So, but ultimately, this is designed to not only help the patient, get them the care that they need at a close location, but also to kind of free up that critically needed emergency room space that we've been talking about before. Next, please. Also in the EMS world, one of the things that we're seeing is Lowell General started back in January an at-home pilot program. This is a program they've talked about doing before COVID, but it got pushed back. So what this does is offers inpatient services for patients that require hospitalizations. And that's for lower acuity issues, things like the flu, pneumonia, COPD. This kind of differs from the visiting nurse program that you hear about, because visiting nurses typically care for patients that have discharged, and then they go visit your house. These are for people who need to be hospitalized, that they're known to the hospital staff. What they will do is they will receive 2 home visits. They will be set up at the house with a tablet to monitor them. In addition, they have a armband that will continuously monitor their vital signs. And if you need testing, lab work, radiology, that can all be arranged. So again, this is designed to kind of treat patients with the lower acuity issues at home where they're more comfortable, but also in an effort to try to free up some of that emergency room space. Next, please. Fire department comparison. So this chart, I've shown this chart before. I've updated the population to reflect the most recent census data. When you take a look at this, a couple things that jump out. Chelmsford Berwick is the only other department on here that has 5 stations. We look at a town like Andover, more population, they respond to more mileage. They run out of 3. Marlborough has a larger population. They also operate out of 3. Acton recently added a 4th station. They did that because to improve their response times. When you look at the category firefighters per 1,000, I caution you, it's not really an apples to apples because a lot of these departments run their own EMS. So Tewksbury, for instance, they staff up 2 ambulances with firefighters. So, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to jump in. Next, please. When we take a look nationally, nationwide, how does Chelmsford compare? When we look at the population bracket that we belong into, 25,000 to 49,999, only 34% of fire departments have 5 or more stations. And when you take a deeper dive, it's usually those departments from the 40,000 population and over that have the 5. So we're kind of unique. We're fortunate in this town that we have that. Next, please. Looking at our responses for 2022, we responded to over 6,000 calls, about a 2% increase. We have about over 500 calls a month that we average on. Of those, 323 are medicals. For your Narcan, I know Director Sue Rose was talking about that. Our Narcan responses went down from 37 last year to 15. I can assure you the problem has not gone away. That is because of the distribution of Narcan that is out there. It's readily available. So the other thing that kind of sticks out here is as the workplace, as people are going from fully remote back to work, we're starting to see that reflected in our calls. Increased fire alarm activity, increased investigation calls, increased motor vehicle accidents. The other thing, too, if you look at the bottom, mutual aid, 63% increase in mutual aid. It's a big jump, largely driven by Westford. We went to Westford 15 times last year. Westford was very active last year. So a very busy year for you. So and also we've had other calls like Saugus, but Westford 15 times, kind of unheard of for us. Next, please. So where are these calls coming out of? What stations? We do over 2,500 calls right next door. That includes that is when you add up the engine, the ladder, the rescue. We do over 1,400 calls at Engine 2, the second busiest station. Engine 3, we do 1,315 as third. When you take a look at 4 and 5, they mix. They go back and forth. They're about the same. Engine 4 was closed a couple times due to COVID and staffing issues. Next, please. So you may have touched on, if you recall, probably back a few years ago, I think probably back before COVID, we had a public safety consultant criterion that discussed heat signature maps. And basically what that did is that showed areas in the town of Chelmsford where we typically respond. Drum Hill, Technology Drive, Barica Road, Chelmsford Street. So we went back, kind of off that, and went back 20 years to look at a chronology of where these calls are happening. So if you go back 20 years to 2002, the number one response for that year was for Technology Drive, followed by Palm Manor at 43, 189 Chelmsford Street, which is assisted living, our highway calls, 495 at the Lower Connector. You see the atrium on there from 2 Technology and 20 Summer Street. Next, please. Let's go back 10 years ago. Starting to see some of the same addresses there. 2 Technologies on there, 40 Parkhurst Road again, 4 Technology Drive, 199 Chelmsford Street, Richardson Road, 200 Richardson to High School. We had an aging fire alarm system, if some may have remembered, a lot of fire alarm activities, so that's what that counted for most of the 41 calls there. But you have your Sunny Acres and your Harvard Vanguard. Let's go back 5 years ago. Next, please. You're starting to see the calls jump. You look at the first one, 77 calls at Harvard Vanguard. It takes over the number one spot. But again, you're starting to see the same consistent calls. You got the 2 nursing homes up there, Sunny Acres, Palm Manor. You got the atrium, which is senior living, 189 Chelmsford Street. If you look at Sheila Ave, the 40, Chelmsford Housing's up there. That 40 is for 1 resident that year. 1 resident response. Next, please. And finally, 2022. So the previous slide show a high of 72 calls for 1. Look at the spikes for the first 2. 172 responses for Palm Manor, followed by, so your 2 top nursing homes are up here, which reflects the COVID environment that we still live and still operate out of. The other thing that jumps out is Best Western. Best Western is number 3. Best Western has transitioned into kind of a housing option. So we have a lot of responses that run out of there. And then you see AFC Urgent Care. That has become a COVID treatment testing site. A lot of calls out of there. So if you take these calls, add them up, it's about 12%. And these are only the top 10 addresses for last year. That reflects 12 to 15% of our responses for last year, right here. Okay, next page, please. The town manager has a traffic committee. He serves on it. The assistant town manager, DPW Christine Clancy's on it. Myself and police chief Jim Spinney's on it. Last year was not a good year for the town of Chelmsford for fatalities on the highways. Last year we had 6 fatal incidents resulting in 7 fatalities. 5 of those fatal accidents were on Route 495 North. The other one was on Route 3 South. In addition to that, and we knew these were going to go up with people going back to work, statewide, we're seeing a 35% increase in fatalities. And for the first time, probably in their recent memory, they had 100 pedestrian fatalities statewide. So those are trends that we're looking at. Next, please. Staying on the topic of the traffic committee, this is a Mass DOT has unveiled a $2.6 million pilot project for wrong-way detection systems. This system is in 10 communities. So what they did is they identified areas throughout the state that are prone to wrong-way vehicle entries. I requested inclusion in this program back in 2020 when they were talking about this. And I was just notified recently, just in the past week, that this system has been set up in Chelmsford. This system that we're looking at is on Route 3 South at exit 81C at Route 110. There's a lot of stuff there, but basically behind Market Basket, behind Sal's Pizza, that off-ramp, that system is set up. And this has gained a lot of attention recently because back in January, a Connecticut state rep was killed. So other states are starting to look to see what we're doing. So again, this is only in 10 communities. Chelmsford is one of those. And Mass had, according to their records, 30 fatalities. I actually think that's a little low. 30 fatalities since 2014. 2 of those were right here in Chelmsford back in 2018. So the way this system is designed, and right now, we have just started the 6-month trial phase for this project. So we're looking at it. We're going to see how we can improve the system, see what works, what needs improvement. But the way it's a solar-powered system that if you enter the ramp the wrong way at the checkpoint, it will flash lights, give an audible alarm. If you go beyond that checkpoint, it then sends a signal to the state police. It then sends a signal to the Mass DOT Operations Center, so they can activate the message boards that you see on the highway. And this system does work. So in November, when they started unveiling these in the 10 communities, they've had 22 alerts. One of those is here in Chelmsford. And for us, and I saw the video, it was a dump truck, it was a plow truck that was going the right way, but kind of backed up to get the other snow. So it didn't go beyond, but it did trigger the system, and it was captured on video. So I can tell you that the system does work. So, next, please. This is a look at the current inventory of staff vehicles. Back in November, we did receive approval from the capital committee for replacement of 2 vehicles. One was involved, the fire investigation vehicle was involved in a accident last year, was totaled, and we have one of the pickups that we are trying to replace. And be mindful that it is a very difficult market out there. We had an order, like many departments, only to see it get canceled. So we are still dealing with supply chain issues. So my thanks to my mechanic, my thanks to Deputy Chief Mike Donahue for working through, navigating through this very difficult process. Next, please. Again, this is a look at current state apparatus. Note, we have a new rescue one there. We just took possession of a new rescue truck paid from ARPA funds, so my thanks to the town for providing those funds, those critically needed funds for us. That truck is in the process of being fit up with equipment. Again, we do have some supply chain issues. It's our hope that that truck will be in service by next month. And in addition, we have an engine that we are in the process of building out, and it's my hope that we will have that sometime later this year. Next slide, please. Kind of like we discussed before, this is a look nationwide. When you look at where Chelmsford belongs in the bracket, how many of those departments out there nationwide have 5 or more? It's 23%. And we know why, because they're very expensive pieces of apparatus. That rescue I was just talking about, with the equipment's over $850,000. Very expensive. So I point that out because we're very fortunate in this town to have what we have. So my thanks to the town manager, to this board for supporting us, and certainly to the voters and the residents. But again, I suspect that the 5 or more, if you do a deeper dive, or more for the 40,000 plus populations. Next, please. There's a new rescue right there. Again, that was paid under the American Rescue Plan Act. So my thanks for not only supporting for this, but also our Engine 2 project. We have been very fortunate in this department. I've been very fortunate. I have a great leader in the town manager, Paul Cohen. John Souza's been very helpful, especially during COVID, in a very difficult inflationary. I have great department heads. I certainly thank my staff, the firefighters. But I would be remiss, because usually when I present to this board, I usually do it with my public safety partner, Chief Spinney. So I know he's coming next week, but and he's going to retire. He's announced his retirement. So I just want to I've known Jim for a long time. We went to school together. We certainly grew up in this department, public safety departments together. I couldn't think of a better leader to serve the town of Chelmsford, and certainly I couldn't have asked for a better public safety partner than Jim. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Very good. Nice job.
Thank you.
So, Chief, I did note that just looking over the personnel services, there's been a decrease this year in the personnel services, but that's kind of decreased in the budgeted amount for personnel services.
Yes.
And I think the last couple of years have talked about the department becoming younger and there being a period of transition. That's what's happening this year?
Yeah, so we kind of knew, and when I first became the chief, the town manager pointed that out, that there would be a transition in the department. So when you look at the, say, the Chelmsford Fire Department profile, we were 16, 17 years average on service. We're now at 14. So I say that because there are certain things when you have more years of experience, you also get more years of vacation time, longevity pay, things like Sue Rosa was talking about earlier. So yes, there is a cost to that.
Okay, so we have a lot of newer firefighters that are under the top step, or
correct. There's about a 17. So an entry level firefighter is about 45.9. Top step, which is probably the 5th step, is about 65.5. So it's about a $17,000 difference, just in base salary.
And then because they're young, we're a lot under longevity.
Yes, that is correct. For longevity, you have to have 10 years of service. So we're about, so I did mention that we have probably 12 or 20% under 5. We also have 17 or 29% of the department under 10. So they haven't even hit that longevity.
All right.
So,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is a discussion of the budget hearing and springtime meeting warrant article schedule. Let's briefly bring up the schedule as it currently sits. So next week, we're going to have the Community Preservation Fund and all those wonderful articles, which make up most of the back half of the town warrant this spring season. We'll also have librarian. As Chief mentioned, the police department will be in next week. And we'll also have a presentation from the planning board, zoning board, and our planning director regarding the 2 zoning bylaw amendments that are being proposed, both the use regulations and the dimensional regulations. So with that, after we've gone through that, we'll set the next week, the 30th, for our review and vote. And we'll move quickly to getting our information into book form and our chairman letter out. And we'll be on our way to town meeting. Any questions about the schedule? No? All right. Then we'll go for public comment. Seeing none, and I know Virginia's on the call. I don't know if she has any comment. Nope, okay. All right, I'm not seeing any press, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. See you next week.